met my first ghost when I was 4 years old, in the bathroom of the first house I can clearly remember living in, and ever since then, I've been chased by them. The first ghost was a young boy in overalls and a button-down shirt and a straw hat. He looked to be about 6 years old, and didn't do anything except stand there in the bathroom watching as I brushed my teeth. He appeared there several times over the next few months, until my family moved to a house just up the road. In the new house, which was the same property, I never felt comfortable. Sometimes at night, I woke up hearing someone call my name, but the voice was unfamiliar. I was always too afraid to get out of bed, and assumed that if it was my mother or father calling me, they would come to get me. The house was always cold, as I'm told newly built houses usually are for a while, but even years after we moved in, there was always a chill in the air that neither the electric heat nor the wood-burning stove could chase away, even in the summer. The first time anything appeared to me in that house, I was 7, and my brother Josh was a few months old. His crib was kept in my room, and I was always the first to wake up when he was crying. One night, in March, when Josh was 5 months old, he was crying, and he woke me. I sat up in bed and waited for Mom to come in and get him, and as I looked out my bedroom window, I saw something silvery and translucent, standing on the railing of the deck, on the back of the house. As my eyes came into focus, I made out the vague figure of a heavy-set woman with a little boy in her arms. The same little boy who had appeared to me in the bathroom of the old house 3 years before. She extended her arms and held them, dangling from her hands, and then let them go. I quickly closed my eyes, not wanting to see what happened. I heard the sound of a child crying. I covered my hand with my pillow and tried to go back to sleep. Through the rest of my childhood, there were many more experiences of this type. I saw a male ghost that I presumed to be the father of the little boy ghost, a much younger little girl ghost, and an older girl who had a distressed look about her, as if she had been through something terrible. Her clothes were ragged and torn up, and appeared to be stained with something dark. I speculated that it might have been blood, and every year, on the night of August 1st, I lie awake at night, listening to the sounds of children screaming. I gave up trying to explain the sights and sounds to my parents, who just laughed at me. Their excuses for not believing me went from inadequate to just ridiculous. At one point, when I was 11 or 12 years old, they told me ghosts don't haunt new houses because they can't make enough noise. All that changed when I was 15. My mom and I were up late watching a movie after she had come in from work. Around 2 a.m., she drifted off to sleep, and I went to the kitchen for a glass of water. When I came back, she was sitting bolt upright on the couch where she had been lying asleep. Her eyes were wide and fearful, and she was pointing at the front window. I followed her gaze, and in the light on the front porch, I saw the shadow of a man hanging from a rope. Together, Mom and I opened the front door to investigate, but nothing was there. Mom was proactive. She began researching the farm we lived on, desperate to find any reason for the hauntings we were experiencing. In the meantime, I experienced more and more alarming sightings. I found old toys under my bed, ragdolls with button eyes that were pulled loose, and wooden pop guns and handmade bears, all of them dirty and obviously ancient. The 2 small children kept appearing wherever I was, calling my name and tugging at my clothes. The most frightening thing happened a few weeks before I left for college. I was packing up my books and CDs and felt an unwelcome chill. It was early August again. About the same time, I always had the most intense experiences. I stood up and moved the box I was packing, and when I turned around, I saw a large man in the corner of my room. He was different from any of the other ghosts I had seen, with a darker coloring and sharper, more defined details. He was wearing dark clothes and had his back turned towards me. I looked closely and saw that there was someone with him, so when he backed into the corner, the older girl from the family ghost I'd been seeing for years. He was harming her, though I couldn't tell if he was just beating her or trying to mess with her or what, but she was crying and screaming, and it was absolutely bone-chilling. As I stood there in the room watching, the other male ghost came into the room holding an axe and approached the other two in the corner. I couldn't watch and ran out of the room. Over the next few years, my mother documented everything she had seen and heard in this house, ranging from the same sorts of things I had seen to some even more aggressive appearances. One day in early August, a couple of years after I left for college, she was in the barn watering the horses and tripped over an axe. Later that same year, she was cleaning out the basement and came across a rope that none of our family had put there. Her research on the farm and the original house that stood on the land revealed that it had once belonged to a wealthy family named Hawkins. The father, Thomas, was convicted in 1893 of the murder of a young man named James Logan after discovering him in his daughter Francine's bedroom. Thomas was put to sleep later that year. His wife Josephine and their two young children were killed during a tornado in March of the next year, and the property was sold at an auction the following August, a year after the murder of James Logan. I've seen and heard ghosts for many years, ever since I was a small child. These are a series of ghost stories that you probably haven't heard. Forgive me, the formatting is a little different, and it's scattered, and the writing isn't very good, but I think you'll get the gist of it. This one occurred in Elong Road, Croydon, Surrey. That's England. My mother saw and heard a little boy walking up the road and singing. He then walked up a pile of sand and disappeared through a wall. In a different city in Surrey, I saw two ghosts there, next to the chalk pits. The first appeared and disappeared, and was an old man in brown. The second was younger, and he appeared and disappeared twice before my eyes. Two people walking towards me walked right through him and didn't see him at all. It was very eerie. My sister and I saw the apparition of a man in dark clothes and wearing a hat, standing in our bedroom. The room was cold and eerie. We were both very frightened. Several months later, my sister saw a girl with a Scotty dog come in the front door and walk up the stairs. There was nobody there when she went to investigate. In this next small tale, this event occurred in Eversfield's old people's home. It's in Surrey. In the caretaker's house, and in the house next door, there were noises heard when nobody was around. Blood dripping through the ceiling onto mirrors, which could never be cleaned. They also heard the sounds of coat hangers being rattled about next door when nobody was in the house. Doors would open and shut violently. A bed moved away from the wall, silently, while the room was full of people. You could also hear the sounds of women's voices downstairs, of laughter and chatter. When you open the door to listen, it then goes silent. The lights swing violently as though there is a strong wind, but there is no wind to be seen, or felt for that matter. At the Reigate Parish School, now converted into houses and flats. The sounds of children playing and talking can be heard. I don't mean the voices of the children while they're still in school. By the time they leave, after hours, you could hear the voices of children still ringing. People have also reported piano playing as well as a tambourine. When they go to open the door, the playing stops, but the piano is reverberating. On the road of Wallfield Annex, Reigate Road, there's an extremely haunted house now, also converted to flats. The ghost of a man in period costume stands at the window on a full moon. I've had the privilege of staying the night at these flats before, and let me tell you, the ghost is a real thing. He's aware that you are watching him, and each night he gets closer to your bed. One night, he was peering into my face, and he winked at me before disappearing. Apparently, the house was owned by artists who like to paint by the light of the moon, which may explain the haunting. There were times where my daughter had certain experiences as well. My daughter told me that she had a friend, a child, who visited her at night and stood at the end of the bed. Obviously, she's referring to a ghost. This house is a Gregorian mansion, and you can feel its history. It's a very spiritual house. I often dream of this house. Perhaps my spirit is there, even in life. Anyway, that's all my stories that I have to share. I work really early in the morning, so by the time I get off work and head home, I'm really tired. I was sneaking in a nap before my husband came home. I've seen some unexplained things when I was younger, but I've never had this happen to me. This was in my parents' basement because at that time, my husband and I were building a home. When I think about it, the dogs never came down in the room. They hated it down there. Anyways, like I said, I was taking a nap. I remember waking up in complete horror. I was being attacked. By this I mean, this shadow figure was trying to get at me while I was asleep. It started at the foot of my bed, and I was kicking my feet at it to get away from me. It then moved up right next to me. I could feel it trying to touch me, and that horrified me. Something about this thing was not right. I was still kicking my legs at it. I remember thinking in my head, no, no. I then sat up straight in bed and looked around. Nothing was there. My heart was pounding and I was sweating. I didn't know what to think. I still don't. I wasn't fully awake during this fight to keep the shadow away from me. I guess I could have been dreaming, but it felt so real. Living with a ghost is not all that bad, as my family and I have found out. We moved to our home in the Skyline Estates in 1991. At the time, we had our 3 and 1-year-old boys living at home. We started to get clues that something unruly was living with us when my wife and I started to hear a 3-year-old talking to someone in his bedroom. He told us that it was an older lady that came to talk to him. He stayed in that room for 3 years until we moved him to another room and put his younger brother in that room. The same thing started happening with the other brother. We have 2 younger kids who also stayed in that room once, and they all reported that an old lady had visited them. Oftentimes, the lady would speak through them. The kids would call her Miss G. Miss G would also make herself known to my wife and I. She was very active any time we made improvements to our home. She would come and watch us, often from the closet, as we would consistently hear and see the closet door open. One time, my wife even swore that she saw a floating face there as she was cleaning. When we were working on the house, we would also feel as though a hand was placed on our bodies. At this moment, we'd also feel a draft of cold come in. When I was working alone, I'd feel the hand again, thinking that this time it was my wife. I would stop to say something, look over my shoulder, and there would be nobody there. This happens to my wife too. She would think I was touching her as well. I saw Miss G once in 1993. I was sitting in the living room late at night. I remember I had the doors leading to the living room closed. A short moment later, I heard what I thought was the sound of my wife walking behind the door. I turned to look back and saw the silhouette of a figure walk by. I immediately went to open the door and look for my wife when I saw a figure move quickly from the hallway into the kitchen, then turn the corner. It happened so fast and it spooked me. That's when my wife walked through the front door. She had been shopping. That's when I suddenly realized that this was the presence of Miss G that was making herself known to me. Even though it spooked me, I don't think she meant any harm by it. As if to say, sorry, I'm just passing through here. My wife has had many interactions with her in the kitchen while cooking. She would set the table and ask her to move a plate. The plate would move slightly forward on its own. Not a big movement, but enough to let her know she was there. After these encounters, we did some research about who our ghostly ghost really was. We found out that an older lady had the house built as her dream home to retire in. Unfortunately, she passed away only a day after she moved in. There was another homeowner who bought the house before us. They only lived there for a month before moving out to live with their kids. I really don't think Miss G is a threat to us, but I believe when we do eventually move from this house, we'll miss her presence, even if it's a bit scary at times. My name is Stacy, and I reside in Brownsville, Texas, approximately 2 minutes from the international bridge into Mexico. What I'm about to tell you is something that happened to me when I was in the 3rd grade, and haven't been able to forget since then. I'm now 25. I remember very distinctly that it was Halloween night, and my brother, father, and I had just returned from a night of trick-or-treating. It was almost midnight when my parents sent us to bed, worried we wouldn't wake up in time for school the next day. At this time, being so young and so close to the border, I shared a room with my nanny. We slept on 2 twin beds. Mine was situated right under a window to my left, and my feet pointed towards an adjoining room we called the laundry room that also doubled as a closet. There was a window in there as well, which illuminated the little room with light from the moon in conjunction with the street lamps. At this time, our house didn't have central air, so we slept with the windows open and a floor oscillating fan. I'd been asleep for a while, and I woke up because I felt hot and looked at the fan as the blades had a tendency to jam. As I had suspected, the fan wasn't working, and I stared at the ceiling, contemplating going to the kitchen for a glass of water. While doing so, I happened to glance into the closet, and standing in front of the washer was the figure of a man dressed all in black and wearing some type of hat, a fedora maybe. Also, his face was not visible to me at all, and all I could see was the black underneath his hat. He was chuckling, but at the same time, I thought it was the most horrifying noise in the world. he started to talk, very casually, about how he was going to get me and my family. I snapped, and finally I realized that this wasn't supposed to be happening. He wasn't supposed to be there. Where was his face? I jumped up from the bed and sprinted to the door, hoping at the same time, not wanting anything to be able to reach out and grab me. I could still hear him laughing, and I felt him getting closer. By the way, when he said all those things to me, it was like a telepathic thing. I don't know if you understand that, but that's the best way I can describe it. I then noticed a faint banging that kept getting louder as I got closer to the door. I then realized it was my brother banging on his wall. That was when I realized that I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I reached the door, and no matter how hard I pulled on it, it wouldn't open. I also tried turning on the lights. I had a dimmer, and I kept turning the knob, but it wouldn't turn on. Suddenly, my nanny woke up and yelled at me to stop screaming and asking me what was wrong. Was I crazy? Then, just as suddenly as it had began, the laughing and the whispering and everything else stopped. The door opened and the light turned on. My parents had no idea what was going on because their room was at the other side of the house. My nanny still tells me that I was white as a ghost, and as soon as she touched me, I fainted. Needless to say, I was not able to go to school the next day. When I was about 7 years old, I can remember this very strange house in West Virginia I used to live in. First, it started with my brothers and sisters and I. We all had one bedroom upstairs we slept in, and one night, waking up, I saw a strange figure of a little child by our bed. I recall turning the opposite way and holding on to my older sister. Being that age, I never thought nothing of it until about 8 years later my family and I moved out, and we were talking about how nice it was to live there, and my mother and father were telling us if we only knew the strange things that they had seen and heard. My father said he woke up one night seeing a little child and thinking it was one of us, and he said go back to bed. The figure never moved, so we sat up from the bed realizing it was a shadow figure and not one of us. And when we went to wake my mother up, it was gone. And other times, here my mother would get up in the middle of the night and see that figure all the time, thinking it was okay, nothing bad was really happening. A few months after that, he heard loud noises, like a baby crying. He said it sounded like it was coming from the wall. My father would really have loved to know about the spirits, but my mother really wanted to move. It's funny when you are little, you really don't know what's going on. When I was little, I used to play outside a lot. In my country, the weather is really hot. So hot that if you stay under the sun for 5 minutes and then go back inside, your head hurts and you will see lights everywhere, for a while anyway. I always used to see figures that those lights would make, but I wasn't scared at all because I knew that the sun was making them. One day, I was outside playing with my brother, but it wasn't as hot to make your head hurt or see figures and lights. I saw a shape of a black dog walking or going somewhere, and then it disappeared. Well, the dog wasn't walking, he was just going somewhere. The figure was not perfectly clear to say that it was definitely a dog, but it really looked like one, and once I saw it, I didn't say anything because I was used to seeing things because of the strong sun. But as soon as I saw it, it disappeared. My brother said, "Hey, did you see that figure of that black dog that went by and disappeared?" I was shocked because I thought I was the only one that saw that thing. It was crazy. So that was a very strange experience. We both asked each other what the heck that was. We were very confused. I'm sure that the figure we saw was a ghost. Hey guys, so before you click off, I encourage you to watch to the end of this video, to the end of this outro, because it really makes a difference in my channel. If you could do me a really quick favor, could you watch until the very end of this video and just share this video, leave it a like, because it's really important for the algorithm to recommend me in the YouTube section. Otherwise, if you guys are clicking off too soon, I won't be able to get recommended, and that will kind of screw up the algorithm for me. Secondly, I'd love to hear your comments on the video. So in the comment section below, let me know which stories you like the most, which ones that you enjoy. I set up a Patreon a while ago, and I'll leave it in the description below so that you guys can actually click on it if you want to donate. You can donate as little as $1 to help the effort. You can also become a channel member for as little as $2 a month. I'm going to really try to revamp the Patreon and the member club so that you guys can get exclusive perks and cool things that you want to see on this channel, either exclusively or other perks that you can really enjoy. So guys, I really hope that you take the moment to actually donate. A lot of us creators don't get paid as much as we should. And in my case, I don't get paid that much on YouTube at all. So it would really help me out, and I'll get one step closer to becoming a full-time YouTuber on this platform. Anyway guys, I love you as always. Sorry to plug that, but I wanted to let you know all the things that we have on this channel in case you really want to support the channel and make it grow and evolve to places that we've never been before. And with that, I'll stop bothering you guys and leave, because my butt looks like a Spanish eagle. What? You guys thought I was gonna leave without saying anything ridiculously stupid or insane? That's not the Phantom way. See you guys, and thank you.